a blood-red sunset and yet another moon phase, and still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving.
Hello and welcome to Spirit Sherpa, the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. I'm Jules, your co-host. If you're new to this type of work, go ahead and back it up and start on episode 1. If you're more of an intermediate, go and start with episode 98. And if you're more of an advanced practitioner, go and start with episode 200. So with me, as always, to share her insights and wisdom is the spirit doctor herself, Kelle Sparta. Hello, Kelle.
Hello, Jules. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing lovely. It is hot as Hades here. The humidity is about 250 degrees, you know. So hell ain't so bad.
It's an overcast day, and it's 72 degrees and a beautiful breeze. So, come to Panama. We have cookies.
We have cookies. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. So, I got to tell you a funny story. So we were over at my friend's house this weekend, just hanging out, cooking, just, bullshitting. And they go, oh, my God, our plants are just dying. I just need some rain. I'm like, let me go practice. So I went outside. I'm like, look, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I can ask. And so I said, okay. So I'm doing my thing and I'm like, hey, y'all, because that's how we say it in the South. Hey, y'all, if you could bring a little rain. And all of a sudden I'm like, so would you like an offering? And I heard sage. I'm like, cool. Hang tight a minute. She's a cook, so I know she has sage. I go in. I'm like, hey, Cheryl, I need some sage. She's like, yeah. How much you need? I don't know. They'll tell me. So bring the sage out, put some in my hand, and literally, I can't make this up. I said, okay, y'all, here's your sage. As I'm sprinkling the sage, kaboom comes the thunder. I look back. Mitch has the biggest grin ever on his face. He's like, yeah, baby. And I said, okay, y'all, hold on to your asses. Here it comes. And we got rain. It wasn't a downpour, because the other thing I hear is that we don't have like the water part. We're just more of a, more bark than bite. So, but we did, and within 5 minutes, it started raining, a little split splat enough to water the yard, and then, off it went. But I'm like, I couldn't have timed this any better. You can't make this shit up if you tried. I was so proud of myself. I was like,
starting to believe you're a really powerful person.
Hell
now.
yeah.
Hell yeah. A little bit of proof will go a long way.
And I turned around and Cheryl was like, that's my girl. Bring me the rain. I'm like, y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that, right? Right? And they're like, oh, we heard it. I'm like, don't piss me off. So
well, and you're lucky because, like half the time people are like, wow, that's fucking cool. And the other half the time they're like, oh my God, I'm terrified of you. So
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I remember the first time I did weather magic. I remember it vividly. I was at my friend's wedding and it was, they had asked for a clear, bright, sunny day and it was a little too warm. And so I went off by myself. Well, I went off by myself and then 2 friends followed me. And I'm sitting there quietly, just like pulling the rain in and pulling the breeze in and negotiating with the storm. And, I think I've told this story before, but we're 300 episodes in. So I'm going to tell it again.
Tell it again.
And I'm sitting there and pulling everything in. And I'm like, okay, can we have just some nice, cool breezes? And they were like, well, yeah, but it'll be thunderstorms. And I'm like, no, not here. And they're like, no, it'll be thunderstorms everywhere but here. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, it was 20 years ago. I'm like, yeah, all
Sure,
right.
sounds good.
Right? What the hell? And so, breeze comes in. We get the slightest smattering of just the lightest rain ever, right, in June, right? And then it all just cools off and the breeze is there and everybody's like, oh, that's so much better. I'm like, you're welcome, right? Now, we go home that evening and I turn on the news and there on the news weather map is this bullseye that is this circle of thunderstorms that circled around the space that the wedding was in. And everything was clear in the center except for the massive number of thunderstorms all around it. And I was just like, well, they did tell me. So that was my moment, the same as you had. So there you go.
So I'm like,
yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Oh, by the way, for those who asked, I did ask for the rain to come back down for the. So did I tell this? Did I tell you this on? So
I don't know. I know the story, but
it's like 2.5 weeks ago, maybe.
Tell it again.
Somebody, gaming Thea said, "Uncle, can you please take your wind sprites back?" And so they have arrived back, and we are getting our rain again. Not as much as normal, but it's an El Nino year, so it is what it is. But yeah, so
you had sent them up to the North Pole, right?
Well, I sent them up so that they would turn. Well, it was raced to the North Pole, and then it was raced back to the equator, right? So only about 3/4 of them came back, though.
They were having too much fun,
and they were having a good time. But yeah, it was to put out the forest fires in Canada, right? So yeah, that was fun.
There you go.
Okay, so yeah, so we should probably get on to our topic for the day.
Yes.
I could tell stories all day, but there's a limit. So, well, maybe we did magical story time. We did a couple of those episodes, if I remember correctly. Kathy and I. Yeah. So, all right. So we're talking about precognition and retrocognition. And what's interesting is I know that this is timely for somebody because we did not have a topic in the calendar for this. And I usually have topics for everything built out in the calendar. And this one was just empty and I couldn't explain it. I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know what happened to it. And so, but Jules, we had our Woo You call today, which is our third program in the series. And one of the other people in the call really needed extra time. And so Jules kindly ceded her time. And so when we hopped on the call today to start the podcast, she was like, could you answer this question for me? Now, in the third program, one of the things that we do is a 30-week test of your psychic abilities to sort of try out different types of psychic abilities to see what you have a natural tendency for, right? And so she was asking a question about this particular module, which is precognition and retrocognition. And so I was like, well, I think we'll just talk about that today. Why don't we do that? We can have it, and then I can add it to the program later when somebody needs it. So go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So in the, I'll say, study material, we're talking about retrocognition, looking into the past, and then precognition, looking into the future. So when we're looking into the past, my notes have said that I have to hook it into something, either like a time period or a historical event, or maybe something I did as a kid or something.
Right. Or an earlier version of yourself or whatever. Right. Or, into an object from that period. I mean, there's lots of ways that you can do it. Anything that has connection to that.
That just brought up another question, but I'm going to say I'm writing it down because I'm like, ooh, I actually, okay, related but different. All right. So because of something that just quite magically came into my life. Yeah. So my question is, on the precognition, what do I hook into since it hasn't happened yet? Or has it?
some things will be so traumatic that they will hook into you. Okay. So for instance, I had a very challenging call on a coaching program that I am a part of, or I was a part of as a student. For days before the call that was the problem, I got this, don't go, don't go, don't go, cancel your time, don't do it. And of course, I blithely ignored it because, I'm too stupid to listen. And so, I went and did it and had a traumatic experience with this coach who had been abusive to me in the past and who was never supposed to talk to me again and suddenly showed up on the call. And I was like, ugh. But the don't go foreboding was the trauma that came up because it brought up. So I had the trauma from the earlier experience with this coach who was horrific. And then I had the trauma again show up as a PTSD response when I ended up on the call and was supposed to be coached by that person again. Now, remember that, this is online coaching, right? It's like, how hard could it be? Well, it's hard when you have trauma from your past that you haven't cleared, right? And so my dad was a rageaholic. And so I spent a fair amount of my time in terror of him. And, he did emotional abuse. And this woman did emotional abuse on the call with me. And so it triggered all that back stuff. And, I've cleared a lot of stuff about my dad, about my mom, about everything, right? But I was like 4 years old again when this happened. And I'm like, okay, so, I took advantage of the time to connect into it and say, okay, that I'm connected to this because I'm not generally connected to that trauma. It was buried so deep that I blithely go on with my life and it doesn't really register, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll use this opportunity because I don't touch this trauma very often. And I will use this opportunity to pull it out and witness the child and do the healing and do the whole thing, right? And so, I had my husband give me a hug and hold me and I just did that work, right? But, the part of me that was like, I don't freaking want to hear that, to feel this again, was the part of me that registered that trauma in the future and brought it back to me going with the sense of foreboding, right? So that is precognition to itself, even though I didn't know exactly what it was. I didn't go looking for what it was. I was just like, I should cancel. And instead I just canceled the whole program. But because, if a coaching program can't keep you safe, you shouldn't be in it. That's the down. I mean, I was like, I gave them one chance. Well, I gave them many chances to address the issue and they didn't. But the point being that, this is a form of precognition, right? So, for instance, when I met my friend who was the shaman back in 1998, and we looked at each other right around the middle of September and we have 3 years to get our shit together because after that, everything changes. And 3 years almost to the day, might be to the day, neither one of us remembers exactly the day we met. The date was 9/11. So we saw 9/11 coming 3 years in advance because it was such a massive event on such a large scale, right? It was just, and it had such broad-reaching impact. And we lived in Boston at the time, so all the planes came from Boston, right? So there was a connection there as well. So all of these things combined to have the traumatic event call to us that early on, right? Now, as far as trying to see into the future, right? There is so there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can look ahead and ask your future self. So I did a guided meditation that Derek Loudermilk did. And he had us go forward 11 years and talk to our future self in the guided meditation, which was very cool, right? And so I went to my future self and I had a conversation, and I had a very cryptic conversation because my future self looked at me and went, "Oh, I remember that time period. And you're in in a shamanic death experience, and I'm not going to mess with it. And I was like, well, how do you do this? And it's like, it just worked out. And I'm like, that is not an answer.
It's not what you wanted to hear.
Right. It was not at all. Yeah.
And your future self's
so,
going, yeah, I remember you being impatient. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So my future self is going, yeah, I remember you trying to control shit.
Yeah.
I remember you being impatient. And yeah, I remember all of the shit that you were going through at that time and how I might just fuck this up for me in the future if I give you more than you're ready for in the present. So, I'm going to be cryptic on purpose. And I'm like, meh. No, it's not my happy place, right? So, but, as you're going through this, you can see things. Like I saw where I lived, and I saw what the situation was and who the people were who were hanging out, and all the things. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Now, keep in mind that that's one potential future, and this is the other thing you have to remember when you go future spelunking in this way. It was like cave diving in your future, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Is that futures are based on probabilities. And so when you go forward 11 years, there's a lot of choice points that can happen in between here and there that can change that outcome. So, you have to keep in mind that it is a probability-based thing. And so with that said, you can also look at the probability lines and follow the probability lines to a potential future as well. So,
Wait, what?
That's another one of the things. We'll talk about that in one of the future videos. But
oh Lord, I know ley lines. I don't know probability lines.
No, probability lines are not. Yeah, they're literally, you're looking at the cosmic at the cosmic timeline, I guess. I don't know. And the way I see them is that you look and you see what are the potential probabilities. And for me, people ask me to do future reads for them all the time. And I'm like, I suck at future reads. Why? Because I carry the energy of change. And the minute I tell you what the future is going to be, you make different choices because I carry the energy of change. And now it changes. And so I sit there for like 10 minutes going, no, it's this. No, it's this. No, it's this. No, it's this. Because every freaking time I open my mouth, I change it. So I don't do future reads for people anymore. But I will do them for myself from time to time. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. So, and this is why I say that, some things we are inclined better towards than others, right? And this is why I give people 30 different videos to watch, because some things you're going to have a natural tendency for. Like I can read the probability lines like no tomorrow. I'm good at that, but I can't share them because
you bring change.
Because I bring change, right? And so, it's like it's a gift that doesn't do a lot of good except for me, and except for I can do it on a larger scale, but it's much more complex on a larger scale because there's way too many people involved. So, but you could tap into a probability line and follow that probability line forward in time. And that would be future precognition, right? So if you follow that particular probability line forward and say, I want to go forward 5 years, I want to go forward 10 years on this line and see what happens, right? And if you don't carry the energy of change, that could be a really cool service, right? Because then you could pick like 3 or 4 different probability lines that are sort of equally splayed in front of you. And you could do a, sliding doors sort of thing with it, right? Where you're like, if you choose this path, you end up here. If you choose this path, you end up there. If you choose this path, you go here. If
door number 1, number 2, or number 3.
Exactly. So, that sort of thing. So that's another way to do precognition. You could talk to your guides and ask them to tell you what's going to happen in the future. That's another precognition option. This is the thing. Everybody thinks there's only one way to do things, but there's like 50 ways to do everything 50. You want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there's probably more like 1,000.
Yeah. Sorry, 50 plus.
Whatever.
I stopped my
Those
car.
are how many I know of each kind because I don't need more than 50, right? So yeah, it's like that. So everything you want to do has an entrance point from a different type of skill set that you're using. And different people have different skill sets, right? So some people are really good at the healing sort of energies, the empath stuff, whatever. Some people are very good at visualization and pulling things into forms with their mind and their will and their intention. Other people are good at communication. It depends on what your skill set is. And you can access almost everything from any skill set if you know the angle to get into it. Or if you can imagine an angle to get into it. You don't have to know the angle. This is magic, right? If you can imagine the pathway that would get you there and have it be congruent with the universe as you know it to be, it'll work. That's really all it takes.
So I noticed, like, if I'm giving myself Reiki or if someone is giving Reiki to me, and you get in the zone, it's just that state, right? And when I give others Reiki, it's kind of developing for me. I see pictures more than I sense, this chakra's out of balance or whatever. That's not me. I start seeing pictures, and for me, I'm a terrible artist, but it's I have to draw it out so I remember what I saw. And I've seen old boats going down if you can see in my head right now, the old Egyptian kind of things, and going down the river, and I've seen little straw huts and people and just different little images, and it'll just be a quick flash or whatever. Would that be a form of retrocognition, or is that something different?
If you're seeing things in the distant past like that, that is most likely you're looking at a past life that person lived. If you're in a healing space with them, that is most likely what you're seeing.
Yeah. For me, it's more like past lives. Even one scene, I was like, what the hell was this? And it was dark. It was a dark and stormy night. I knew it was across the pond. It was the little pavers everywhere, oil street lamp in an alleyway, and I'm like, I've seen this before. I don't know where. I go search, and I'm like, what, London? And I'm like, this is it. This is the place. And it was where freaking Jack the Ripper was. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling this to you. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. Maybe I was there during the Jack the Ripper times, and all that.
No, I mean, did you see it during a Reiki session? Or were you seeing it some other time?
Probably I was seeing it some other time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's likely your past life, not theirs. But if you're seeing it during a Reiki session, it's most likely their past life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Reiki session. So on that one, either I was giving myself Reiki or someone was giving Reiki to me.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, that'll be your past life.
That would be my past, yeah. So did I tell the story about whenever I was giving Reiki and in my Reiki group, and we practiced giving Reiki to each other, and we're all students, different levels, and I told them okay, I don't have a unique, this chakra is out of balance or whatever. This is what I'm seeing. I am seeing you standing by a whiteboard in front of a group of people. And it's either you're instructing them on something or you're telling them an example or sharing a story, something. Fast forward 3 months. She's like, oh my God, Jill, I can't wait to tell you. I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, what you saw last time, she says, it came true to the detail. And I went, what? I started crying. I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, I changed jobs. She says, I had a feeling, and I'm like, I need to take this leap. She changed jobs. She said, and it didn't hit. I kept wondering, am I where I'm supposed to be? Am I where I'm supposed to be? She says, and all of a sudden I realized, because I'm a group leader, I'm leading a group of people. She says, I have a whiteboard and I'm saying, this is how we're going to do this process. And I'm marking out step by step. She said, and I stopped and I went, holy shit. I went, no fucking way it didn't happen. She was like, that's when I knew I made the right decision. And I'm like, here's everybody else going, oh, your crown chakra is open. You need to close it or it's out of whack. And I'm like, you're going to be teaching some people and you got a whiteboard there.
Yeah. So clearly precognition is one of your gifts.
So and that was my next one. I'm like, is that precognition?
That is precognition, baby. That is definitely precognition.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Now, most likely that precognition came from your guides who were talking to her guides, and they see through time. And so her guides were going, so 3 months from now, she's going to need a sign. And she's going to need a sign that is more significant than something she can get in the moment. So we're going to give it to her 3 months ago.
Sweet. Right? Oh, see, that's so fun.
Yeah, that is most likely how that came to be.
Okay, that's awesome. I like that. So, yeah, and I always thought I was like, okay, I'm always a little different on how I do stuff, experience stuff. I mean, hello, have you met me? So I was like, oh my gosh, that's just weird.
Right? Yeah. So, all right. So I think we've done a lot on precognition. Let's look at retrocognition.
Okay.
So retrocognition is looking back in time, right? And so it could be anything from walking into a room and being able to see what happened in that room before, right? So, and things like that show up in places that there's trauma often, right? So, somebody was murdered here or, whatever, right? Sometimes you will get that sense, and sometimes it's retrocognition. Sometimes it's the ghost reliving the story in front of you and you're doing mediumship, right? So, this is the thing about this stuff, people. Okay. You're like, I need a label for it. No, you fucking don't. Okay. It could be from a variety of different places, and it really doesn't matter where you got the information. It just matters that you have it. Okay. It could be your guides telling you. It could be the ghost yelling in your face. It could be, the residual energy in the room that you're picking up on as an empath in the moment because the room's never been cleared. It could be retrocognition of you looking back in time and just having that moment just wash across, because we are living in the eternal moment of now. And, the moments that have the most emotion attached to them often show up the brightest. Okay. So, you could have this for positive experiences, but quite frankly, most people in the West don't have sufficient charge to their positive experiences for them to outweigh traumatic ones. We don't let ourselves be that happy most of the time. But, you could have, a happy home that has had happiness in it over and over again, and that's the residual energy in the space. And so you could feel that too. But the only one of those that is retrocognition is actually seeing the past as it happened, right? Not through a ghost showing it to you, but just you actually seeing that moment, right? And so you can do that way. You can do it through a combination of psychometry. And we did an episode on psychics and psychometry, right? So, but psychometry meaning, like you're holding on to a thing, an item, and you're reading the energy of that item. And if that item was attached to an experience, it can take you back in time to that. And, okay, you're making the face at me.
I am making the face at you. So that was my question. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to say magically, because I was not expecting this at all. And the universe has a sense of humor, and it just helps me. And that's just all it is to it. So I have been wanting an old singer sewing machine, like the foot pedal or the, you do it by hand, because I want to be able to do leather works. Okay. So all of a sudden we were at, we do firewood on the side. We were at a firewood customer's house, hanging out, having a good time. Me and the wife go in the back room because she does quilting. And I'm like, oh, I got to go see everything. So she's showing me everything. And I mentioned to her about the singer sewing machine. She was like, really? Well, let's see what I have. So she pulls out 2 vintage singer sewing machines. Yeah, wait for it. In the little travel box, right? Okay. She gives one to me straight up. And I'm like, no. This is like too much. She was like, no. It's going to your home. if you'll have it, she was like, I wanted to go to a good home. And she's like, you are going to use it. I'm like, hell yes, I'm going to use it. So I'm a complete nerd at heart. And so I'm like, oh, I have to see when it was made. Call up Jenny. She's my super uber nerdy friend. She does all this stuff, and she collects old Singer sewing machines. And so it was made in 1957, March 15th or 16th, and it's one of 50,000 that were made. So I'm like, and it's so pretty, and it works. I was so excited. Yay. So my question was, which was completely what you were going to, I was wanting to use, and I think it'd be right, the retrocognition, because I would like to see like its history, like how would we use stuff like that?
For that. Yeah, you could absolutely use retrocognition for that, but be prepared for it to come in a rush of images, because
like a slideshow.
Kind of more like a,
or like fast forwarding on
the TV shows where yes, exactly. On TV where they show the fast forward and the rewind, it's probably going to show up like that. And then you'll have to like slow it down and go in on particular instances, because that's probably been sitting in her closet for ages. So you don't want to see it frame by frame, because that would take you freaking forever. And you don't want to have to live through 50, 70 years worth of time of this thing being around, right? So it'll show up when you go into it more like the fast forward, rewind sort of energy of it sliding across, right? And then you just have to like zone in on one or two vignettes over the course of its lifetime, right? So it's like, okay, stop here, go in. Right?
Yeah, that's because I thought that would be fun, and good practice for me to do that. Now I have my house ward set up and everything, so I brought it in the house, but just to be on the safe side, I cleansed it too. And I'm like, hey, yeah, anything that's attached, you got to go. You're not staying here, roll. And so I even put my selenite on it, and just let it cleanse. So, but that wouldn't erase like the history of it.
No, that's not going to erase the history.
Right. Okay. Because I thought I was like, okay, I don't know why this happened, but it happened for a reason. God loved this woman. And the one you
manifested it. That's why it happened. You set an intention, you put emotion behind it, and you expected to get it. You manifested it. And you probably at the same time went, I don't want to have to pay a lot for it.
Yes, I did.
That was probably part of your manifestation, because I know you.
Yes, because I'm on a small budget. So I'm like, no.
So you manifested it. That's what happened. So it's another geez, I'm powerful moment, just in case you missed it, which you clearly did. So we're going to just reinforce
We're going to reaffirm that. Yes, I manifest.
Actually, it was magic. Yes, it was your magic. Your manifestation.
Manifested. It was crazy.
And she probably manifested it too, because she wanted it to go to a good home.
She said she has been holding on to this for a few years. She's had two. And now the one she kept, she was like, no, I'm keeping this one. I'm like, oh, no, okay. She was like, no. Let me explain to you. She says, this one was made the month and the year I was born. And I'm like, oh, hello, that's yours. She was like, no, but this one's for you. She was like, that's yours. And I was like, oh my God. And it's black.
So you guys mutually manifested that.
It's so crazy. Yeah. Oh, that was fun. Yay. So
yes, you can use that for retrocognition. And another way to do retrocognition is to, pick a moment in history, right? It's especially easy if you have a picture of that moment. So like the famous picture of the guy kissing the girl on VE Day, whatever it was, the end of World War II. You could go and watch her be unhappy with him for kissing her because he didn't know her. So you could go back in time and watch that. You can go back to Pearl Harbor and watch that if you wanted to. I mean, not that you would want to, but you could.
I could go back to Babylon and figure out how we met.
Yep, that'd be a thing.
Because apparently I knew Savannah in Egypt. Because she was like, girl, we hung together in Egypt. I'm like, okay, well, I got to go figure that out too. So
yeah. Okay, not figure it out.
Not figured out, but see it.
See it. Yes. Witness. That's always a good word. So yeah, I mean, you can use retrocognition for all of that, and all you have to do is just have a very clear idea of how or when, not how, but when you're going back to, right? And so that can take you there as well. So, and this is all just a process, right? I mean, you can do this with, like, I've done this in healing sessions. I've looked at somebody who's got something going on and gone, wow, where did this come from? And just scrolled back to find it, right? And gone, okay. And I've actually even done work at that time frame to fix it because it had already gotten too bad to try and fix it in the present. And I just scroll it back. I've done work with this in, remember the story about me doing my first reading that proved to me I was psychic? And, the room full of people, and the one guy who said, don't judge your ability to read me on, don't base your psychic skills on being able to read me. I've had world-class psychics who couldn't read me. And I went, oh, I wonder why that is. And I immediately went back in time and watched when he was 5 years old and put the shield up that kept everybody out. And I said, oh, okay, so here's the shield that you put up, and here's how you constructed it so that if you ever decide to take it down, you know how. And he was flabbergasted. He was like, he's like, nobody's ever been able to read me at all, ever, and give me anything, right? But I just went back in time to look at it because time doesn't really exist, right? And so, we're in the eternal moment of now. You just choose to see that part of now instead of this part of now, right? That's
a whole nother brain-blowing, mind-blowing kind of concept. Yes. I still struggle with that one. So, but it's okay.
Yeah. So, this is advanced level stuff, obviously. And, there's only so much of this I can do online without risking people hurting themselves. So I will only give away as much as I can without risking people hurting themselves. So what I'm going to say is I have been chewing on the idea of doing a retreat here in Panama for people who are further along in their process, for whom, learning things like this or experiencing different healing techniques or, learning how to do different things, right? Where we could do that work. And it would be custom designed around the people who attended. So, I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be about because I don't know until the people sign up. And then when the people sign up and I have a little conversation with everybody, then I go, okay, here's where the intersection of all these people meet. And then I'll do something around that, right? And so I don't have a website up for it, anything. I don't have anything about it. So if you are interested in this, because I haven't actually committed to it yet, but if I get enough people who are interested, I have 2 people who have said yes, that they would definitely come if I did it. So I need 6 or 8 more to make it go. If you are, and price point is going to be about $3,500. That's what I've worked out for the cost of the venue and all of the other things. That does not include your airfare, but it does include travel from the David Airport in Panama up to Boquete, and it does include food. So that would be the cost. So if this is something that you would be interested in, please email me at Kelle@kellesparta.com. And give me the sort of level of interest that you have. It's like, well, if it fit my timetable and it was the perfect alignment of the moon and I had the money in my account, then I would come. Or is it I'm going to be there no matter what you do, right? Just tell me when and where to show up and I will be there. So I'm somewhere in between there, right? Give me an indication of your commitment to come. And if I get enough people, I'll put it together and make it happen.
Well, there you go. So y'all go ahead and sign up because that sounds like a lot of fun. Very cool. And it never
Yeah.
fails.
One person beating me about it. He's like, would you please do this? I really want to come. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it never fails. Those who sign up, there'll be some connection, common denominator
Right.
somewhere every time. Does not matter. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very cool.
and that's so true. And if you have any doubt about what a retreat with me is like, just check the testimonials page of the website, scroll down to the bottom. Just before the bottom, the very bottom is about podcasts, but the middle section there is all about retreats that I've done in the past and that Kathy and I have done in the past. So this would be just me, though, not Kathy. So just so you know.
Ooh, they get you all to themselves.
All to themselves.
There you go.
My husband, too, because he'll be there to help.
Oh, sweet. Okay. All right. All right. Well, what is for a precognition and a retrocognition and a trip to Panama? What is your Kelleism for today?
Ask and it will be revealed.
And that's all that needs to be said. There you go. All right. Well, that's all that we have time for this week, folks. Tune in next time when Kelle adds another chapter into your guide to energy, magic, and the spirit world. I'm Jules, here with Kelle Sparta, and you have been listening to Spirit Sherpa. So long, everyone.
Bye.
Facing still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone. But feeling good and feeling strong. Knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving